Kobbie Mainoo's agent has been in contract negotiations with Manchester United all season long, and there has been a lot reported on it. But what's the truth? What's going on? What can United fans trust? And is Kobbie going to sign? Let me explain everything that we know has happened so far, what we think is going on, and why it's important that United get the right decision and outcome here. There's been a lot that's been reported on Kobbie and these contract negotiations, which have been going on for quite some time now. He hasn't signed a new deal, but what is actually going on? I'm going to run through the timeline of it and why I want to have the conversation with you today. You can let me know in the comments whether you think, overall, the most important question, do you think that Kobbie will sign a new contract? Right now, it's considered up in the air, but we don't quite know. Now, in terms of how this story has developed this season, okay, the majority of the conversation around Mainoo and whether he'll stay at United or leave United has been around PSR, has been around the fact that United might have to sell Kobbie to make money. And you've got quite a lot of the gutter press sort of leading with the conversations around Kobbie. Nothing really from The Athletic on these conversations or The Times or the BBC. This is from The Guardian that Kobbie was going to reject a new United contract to move abroad. You've got the Daily Mail here leading, and they're the only ones who have really mentioned this, and they're talking about figures in the region of 180 grand a week, which, of course, would be outrageous. And there's no way that Kobbie managed to get a contract like that. And you see TalkSport speaking about it. And then this is where the conversation has sort of emerged today. Florian Plettenberg from Sky Sports Germany just casually dropping Kobbie Mainoo's name into a list that includes Lindelof, Casemiro and Eriksen of planned or possible departures from United. It's like an add-on. And there's been a lot of sort of outrage when it comes to the idea that Kobbie Mainoo is going to be a planned departure from United. Now, ignoring all of the press and the reporting, let's actually go to the facts that we know from our manager, head coach, and also from Jim Ratcliffe. Ruben Amorim's made it more than clear on more than one occasion now, and he wants to keep the likes of Mainoo and Garnacho. And I've gone on record saying it, and I still feel it genuinely if I think one of those two players will leave this summer. Not will leave, but if there's a chance of one of those two players leaving, I do still think that Garnacho is more likely, but that's just my own opinion. And Jim Ratcliffe has already gone on record in his interview with the BBC and Gary Neville and said, look, any conversation that we might have to sell, I'll go back here to the original, where this really, really started, let's be honest. Any idea that United will have to sell Mainoo or Garnacho simply for financial reasons is wrong. That will not happen at Manchester United. And it then pulls the conversation back to the numbers involved. And we go back to really where I think the Guardian may have mentioned the idea of 150 grand a week. And it's just all speculation, really. And if there's one thing if there's one thing at our football club we need to fix, yeah, well done, Sam. How long's a piece of string? There are plenty of things that need to be fixed at our football club. But one major problem which has hampered us for a long time, still does, with the likes of Casemiro, Shaw, Rashford, Anthony, and there's others that you can throw into that list. Like, I think 6 or 7 out of our top 8 earners at the club aren't really established game changers for us in the same way that Bruno Fernandes is. And our wage bill is just so massively bloated and inflated. And that's where this conversation, I suppose, is reaching a... What do you think is causing the delay? Would it be the demands of Mainoo? Would it be the position of Manchester United as a club and whether Mainoo wants to be part of the future? I think it does. I think he's actually gone on record saying this on more than one occasion before. But when it comes to the wage bill of United, and when it comes to the offers that will be going towards Mainoo, it won't be anything, and I've said this a few times. Again, I want to mention this video specifically about Mainoo in this contract. It won't be about pointing towards what Bruno Fernandes is on, or what Casemiro is on, or what Rashford is on, or what Anthony is on. It'll be pointing towards, I think, this contract here that Ahmad has just signed is probably going to be the benchmark. Now, we don't know what Ahmad has just agreed to. Again, because as far as Copology can go, they can't be accurate with how much United's players are genuinely earning. But that's probably going to be the marker for Mainoo. And also, if you look at how much Patrick Dorgu signed his contract for, how much Aiden Heaven signed his contract for, of course, Aidan Heaven was an 18-year-old unestablished in Arsenal before he joined. Patrick Dorgu was coming from Lecce to United. So even if he's on 40 grand a week, which is what some reports suggest, that would be probably a significant increase. So I think Ahmad is the best example for somebody who is a young, top-class, world-class talent. Maybe not world-class yet, but somebody who's established himself as a first-team regular, is an important player for our club, an important player for the future, and is at that age where you can get some sort of similarity with Kobbie Mainoo. Now, obviously, since he signed that contract, a lot has changed. And Kobbie is now an established England international and an established first-team star at Manchester United. But this is sort of the reality, right? Kobbie won't be getting 150 grand a week at Man United, and nor should he be. And when it comes to fixing this, now I really, really hope this isn't the case, okay? But there will be casualties that fall by the wayside. There will be players that do not want to agree with a wage restructure at United, and they will want more than United are going to be offering them. Now, I hope that that's not going to be Kobbie. But the reality is there will be some players. There might be some players that we aren't able to sign this summer because we aren't giving them the wages that they demand. For example, I could imagine Victor Osimhen going into that category. The wage demands might simply be too much for a structure that we are trying to implement, and it might mean that we have to walk away from any potential deal for Osimhen. I don't think that would be a bad thing. It might be a bad thing in the idea that if you want Victor Osimhen as your striker, but things have to change at this club. We have to get hold of our wage structure because it is so awful that Anthony's on. I actually don't know how much exactly he's on because I think those numbers are overinflated and reported. But Marcus Rashford, for example, huge amounts of money for a player who in the last couple of years, well, and moving forward, won't warrant those wages. And Casemiro, Rafael Varane before he left. The days of United, you know how Ed Woodward always used to say that United's on-the-pitch performances don't affect our ability off of it. Man United went through a good few years of the only way that we were actually able to bring these players in was giving them bigger wages, overinflating their wages. And Alexis Sanchez is the perfect example of that. Literally the only reason it didn't go to City was because United came in and slapped it on top. And that is the one contract which still has the ripple effects through the club. But overall, I just think Amorim and Ratcliffe have both made it clear. Well, actually, no. Amorim has made it clear that he wants Mainoo. Ratcliffe has made it clear that he won't be sold simply for PSR reasons. So the only reason Kobbie won't sign is if he can't agree on contract terms. I don't think he'll do that. But I do think it would be right for United to stand firm and not bend to any player's will when it comes to contract terms from now on, if we are truly going to try and change the culture at the club and why players are signing. Because if you want to play for Manchester United, it's not all about the money. You can let me know what you think in the comments below. It's just, the reason I'm having this conversation today is because I saw a lot of talk around this and the idea that United are planning to sell Kobbie Mainoo. We're not planning to sell Kobbie Mainoo. Jim Ratcliffe's already said that. But if he won't agree terms, that's a different thing altogether.